So, you will introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Nina.
Yes, I'm Stina. We rhyme.
We know. So we're going to talk about building flood resilience together. And this is a project where we try to explore new ways of addressing the issue of urban flooding. Okay. So some hard problems don't always have hard solutions. It's often more efficient to use what you might call soft techniques. So as you were pointing out, we can't rebuild the entire city to fit today's weather conditions or the ones of tomorrow. But by involving everyone working and living in the city, we may achieve change. So communication and collaboration are essential in doing this. And building flood resilience together is part of VA Syd, and that's a water and wastewater association in southwest of Sweden. And the project started in 2017 and works within Malmö. And next year we will also expand and include Lund in our work. And we work obviously very close to our colleagues at VA Syd and very close to the city of Malmö.
Yes, so why are we working with this project? Well, your question. But in Malmö, this is the land ownership in Malmö and in Lund as well. 30% of the land is owned by the municipality. There's where we can do stuff. That's our responsibility. 70% is private property land. And in Sweden, we have no legal way of making people take care of the water. We can't force them to detain water or purify water or whatever. There's no legal way. So we have to make people want to take care of the water, to make them understand why it's important and to be a part of the solution. And that's the main goal for this project. It's to affect the 70%, because we are working our ass off on the 30%, but we can never take care of 100% of the water in 30% of the land.
So how do you make the people want to take action? Well, the strategy from day one has been this: positive enforcement. Always to point out the benefits of doing the right things instead of pointing out the negative consequences if you do the things wrong or if you don't do anything at all. So this is really crucial to us. Always point out the good benefits of it. And the one thing we recommend the most for people to do is to disconnect the downpipes and take care of the rainwater in their own gardens instead of letting it go down into the sewer system. And this is so important, so we actually pay people to do it. So for every downpipe that you disconnect from the sewer system, we pay 2,500 crowns. That's approximately 250 euros. And that's a very strong motivator and very good tool to have in our toolbox when we contact people. And the bicycle here is one example of how we try to reach out to people in new ways. So this is a movable ad that goes around in Malmö sometimes. And it also contains an exhibition inside. So we can open it up, and inside you have a full exhibition of how to take care of the rainwater and how to disconnect the downpipe. And as you can see on the side here, it says "Skörda regnvattnet," harvest the rainwater. And that's exactly what we want people to do. And this phrase has proven to be very efficient. Most people in here, I guess, think that stormwater and sewer system and those solutions are the most interesting thing in the world. That's not the general opinion, I may tell you. Most people in Sweden have a very, very low interest of sewer systems and stormwater solutions. So when we talk about it to them, it's no use to talk about unburden the sewer system. That's not very big, not very catchy. But when we talk about harvest the rainwater, it's no longer a stormwater solution. It's a garden solution. And garden interest in Sweden is huge. People pay a lot of money and put a lot of time into their gardens. So when we put the context into a garden context, people start to listen. So that's been very helpful. Other things we do is to reach out to seek collaboration with large actors like real estate companies, housing societies, architects, landscapers, municipalities, everyone who's working with those issues. We don't hesitate to actually pinpoint actors and knock on the door and say, okay, we know that you have a history of flooding issues, we think we might have a solution. If you're willing to do this, we can do that, and the municipality can take this part. Are you interested? I think the three of us can actually work something out. So that's one way of doing it. We also know that especially housing companies, housing societies have a very low know-how. They don't always know what to do. They want to do things because they want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to start. So that's where we can send our expertise. So instead of money, we can send a person, an engineer, to go to them and get them started. So this is whom you should contact. This is what you should do. You should look for this. You should examine that. And that's also a good start. And this has also been proven to be quite popular.
So, does it work? Of course it works. We wouldn't be here otherwise. Now, we've been working with this project for about 2 years. We can see some results. We can see, well, but of course, changing the way people think about water you don't do that change overnight. It will take time. You have to be pretty persistent. I want things to happen fast, but it doesn't always do that. But we can see, for example, what Nina told you about the disconnecting downpipes. We had that offer for 2,500 crowns since the 90s. Well, the exact amount of money has changed over the years, but it has been around since the middle of the 90s. And since we started our project from the 4 years before, or the 5 years before, average before 2018. So since we started this, we can see an increase in the amount of disconnected downpipes for, I love statistics, 1,752%. That's pretty good, right? So we take it in percent and not in numbers because it looks better this way. And of course we see an increase in interest in our questions from private urban developers and other stakeholders. And of course we see an increase in the reuse of water. Of course, since last summer we had no rain at all, so we can talk about the reuse of water, and that attracts very many people. And one thing I think we're trying to not only get the statistics and the percentage, but also never to be content of what we are doing, always trying new stuff. If one thing doesn't work, we have to do it another way and try to test. So one thing we do is that we test different messages. So when we're doing a drive in social media, we are testing 2 different messages. So one was fast money, 2,500 crowns for your downpipes. And one was, it's better to make room for the water in your garden than in your basement. And we can see what attracts people, and we can make our information out from that. So always try and test and motivate what you're doing. So the cost efficiency, this is just a very, very simple measurement of costs. I like to talk about what it costs to take care of 1 cubic meter of water, because then you can compare it to different ways of taking care of water. So if I pay a person 2,500 crowns for connecting 1 downpipe, and the downpipe takes about 50 square meters, and it's a 10-year storm, it's like 20 millimeters, it will cost 2,500 crowns for that cubic meter of water. And if we compare that to retrofitting in a park, we have Söderkullaparken, the first cloudburst park in Malmö. It was a pretty cheap park. We don't have a lot of those parks in the central areas that just laying around waiting to be cloudburst parks. We paid about the same amount. If you're talking about doing like rain gardens in existing streets or doing underground storage, we are talking about 10 times the money for 1 cubic meters. And if you're doing really cool urban cloudburst places like Tøssingerplads in Copenhagen, that cost about 70,000 crowns per cubic meters. So It's not only a smart and efficient way, it's also a cost-efficient way.
And another way of measuring our efforts is this one. This is NCC. It's a company that was contracted to build a pumping station for us. And they put up those beautiful signs. And the green one here on the right, they wrote, "Bring on the 100-year storm. We're building a new pumping station, yada, yada." And then they ended with, "Tillsammans gör vi plats för vattnet, building flood resilience together," which is the name of our project. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. When you get someone else to use our message and use it as their own, I think that's also a way of measure our success. So I think it's cool that they're using it, so I will do the same, use theirs. Bring on the 100-årsregn. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and we can just say that we have a website with a lot of information, especially
In Swedish,
in
sorry.
Swedish. But there's a lot of pretty pictures and movies you can see. Disconnecting down 5%.
And an Instagram,
And
of
an
course.
Instagram, of course.
Nina and Nina.
Ska vi ställa oss tillsammans?
One thing that you didn't do was introduce you, because you have different backgrounds. That is also
Yes.
a sort of a new way of thinking, new way of working together.
Yes.
You're both employed at VS Syd, but
Yes.
you have different backgrounds.
Yes. I'm an engineer.
And I'm a communications officer.
So Nina, she always said she'd take my engineer language and she translates it to Swedish. So never let an engineer talk to people because they don't know how. That's why we have Nina.
You may have to talk, but not write.
Yeah, talk not right.
Yeah.
But that's good. That's also some new thinking that we need to introduce. We need to communicate. So, questions for Stina and Nina?
Thank you very much. Just out of curiosity, a really short question. You said like the message, the basement or the money message. Which one was the best?
It was almost the same, but it was kind of interesting because most men went for the money, and most women were kind of worried about the basement. So. That was the most significant difference between the. Yeah. I don't know what they say about us, but.
That's the upside of the, the trackability of the social media, so you can see everything.
Yeah.
Who's been clicking on what.
Wolfgang Rauch, I have a question. You mentioned you cannot really change existing connections on the private land, basically. It's understood that if you have an existing pipe connections, you cannot really break it. But what about changes or new developments? Can you simply not enforce green-blue infrastructure?
No, not on private property land.
But that means you have to provide sewer systems,
Yes.
even. Okay.
Yes. Welcome to Sweden.
Oh, okay. This
It
is
sucks.
interesting because this is definitely something we're not doing, and that's actually where we can really make some changes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. We know,
Interesting.
but we are working on it on a national level to try to change it because it's crazy. We cannot continue building the cities like this. We all know what to do, but we don't have the legal demands to do it.
And it's like Frans was pointing out, only 30% of the land is owned by the municipality, but it's obviously raining all over the city. It doesn't only rain on that small orange 30% piece. It does rain on the blue part as well. So.
Because, well, Frans van der Ven again, I'm puzzled by your final slide. Bring on the 100 years rain.
Yeah.
Because I think what you're after is not, well, the way you deal with the 100 years rain will be very, very different from the way you want to deal your citizens with the 3 times per year rain or the once per year rain. Isn't that a very rainwater harvesting, use of rainwater, rainwater storage, isn't that very different from the way they want to protect themselves from the once in a 100-year rainstorm? Because it relates to say the coping capacity and the adaptive capacity that Steve was talking about as well.
But we usually call it, like when we made the cloudburst plan, we call it, I don't know, drip by drip, pond by pond or something. So if everyone is taking care of a small amount of the water, it will be less. And of course we are building the cloudburst parks, we are building the huge structures, or we are looking at how to cope with early warning systems to deal with a 100-year storm. But we will have to deal with a little bit less water when the 100-year storm comes, if at least all the rain barrels also are filled with water. So that's
absolutely true. But your primary concern about the 100-year storm is to protect your vital infrastructure, that it's still working after the storm. Huh? So it's minimizing damage of that event, which brings us to a completely different theme in communication, I think, as compared to the way you were talking about earlier.
Yes, it's well as doing communication in both, I think. But I think by taking care of a small amount of water, you will get a result in the end.
That positive result is there, but the primary concern of the 100-year rainstorm and even a heavier rainstorm is to minimize the damage.
Yes.
And basically, you want to avoid flooding in particular of your critical and vital infrastructure. Maybe even allow the basement to be flooded in order to avoid flooding of a subway system or.
No,
Yes. But I think that's, as you said, that's a different kind of communication for a different. Partly different target group and also a different situation. So this is about the communication, but direct to the residents of Malmö in order for them to take action. The other one is more to explain how does it work on a bigger level. And we talk about two levels of objectives. So one is to change the way people think about water, and urban water especially. And the other one, this one, is for people to take individual action. And I think if we reach the first one, that will also spill over to the second one. But I think you're right, there are two different strategies. Yes, obviously.
Okay. We have one question here.
First, thank you for your interesting presentation. I have two questions. The first one is, we had a interesting statistic, 1,700 something percent increase. My question is, what is the absolute percentage, the number of disconnected pipes in comparison to the total properties?
The absolute figures, you mean?
Yeah, it's a very few compared to all the houses. We have this year. I think we have like 200 disconnected pipes this year. And I think, I don't know, how many private property owners do we have in small houses?
26,000.
26,000, so just a very small percent. But we are hoping that you get a snowball effect. That when do we reach the tipping point? I don't know, but hopefully we will do that, and it will be, or maybe it's when we are able to change the laws, then we can also use more force than just
It gives that interesting comparison between Sweden and other countries, because usually, as far as I know, in some countries, they can actually enforce, especially for new urban development, that they need to have this connected pipe system. And my second question is about this rain water harvesting tanks. So when people have that, this is some sort of decentralized system, but how far are we to put an information layer, as Gustav was talking about, to have decentralized systems but manage them in a centralized way? So for example, when we have this 100 years of precipitation, there's a centralized system that empties all those tanks to get the maximum impact.
We're not there doing it on that small scale, but we are looking at it for our own tanks or ponds, or looking for a weather or pumps. So and we have installed a new radar system that is more exact than the national radar system.
radar.
So the plan is to be able to weather control our system. We're not there yet but hopefully if we get a really good system, if we have a very good system, we can go. We can go on social media and tell people it will start to rain soon. Empty your barrel, but I guess that's as far as we are thinking right now.
I just wanted to reflect a little bit on Fran's question, because these rain barrels, when you install, I think if it comes to cloudbursts, I suppose that these rain barrels will be already filled up before the peak of the cloudburst strikes.
Yeah.
So how would it benefit the cloudburst management?
You need to put a big tube on the top of the barrel so you can let the water out. So when the barrel is full, it will flow over and come out into your garden. And then you into your lawn or some plantings or something. Yeah.
So you don't get the money if you don't put a plug on your pipe.
Yeah.
You can't just put a barrel on and make it overflow back in the pipe system. You have to put a plug on the pipe, and then you have to, like Nina said, let the water pour out in your garden or something.
And we do check.
We do
we
check.
Don't just give out the money. We do check.
We do check. So they're doing it the right way.
Can I just add on your question before about the controllable small devices, basically? So it's actually a matter of research, because we are actually also doing exactly in that area some research. And the main problem is the information. You need to have a reliable information, and the cheap, reliable information. That is the main trick. You cannot simply put all these rain barrels on a VLAN system or just give them a cellular phone or something. So you need to have a really cheap communication layer, and that's the main thing. The rest is engineering.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.